Namaste, everyone. If I may, I'd like to raise a profound point to you all. The purpose of studying genetics and human biology ought to be reoriented away from curiosity about our origins or ancient reconstructions moving forward, and instead toward the alleviation of human suffering, parallel to the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, which center on recognizing suffering, understanding its causes, and pursuing a path to its cessation. In other words, tracing our ancestry or reconstructing a deep evolutionary history may satisfy our intellectual curiosity, but it doesn't necessarily address the lived conditions of disease, of genetic predispositions, or of biological vulnerabilities that generate our suffering. By focusing on disease prevention, mental health, aging, and the biological mechanisms of pain and resilience, genetic research can align with the spirit of the Noble Eightfold Path, seeking right intention, right action, and right livelihood in science. Instead of asking, where do we come from, the more urgent question becomes, why do we suffer, and how can we reduce or end that suffering? What the Bhagavad Gita has to say about these matters is impeccable, no doubt, but we need something for lay people, for your typical NPC, something your working-class, blue-collar Midwesterner won't deride because it's associated with the subcontinent, however erroneously. Human biology and genetics then become tools to map suffering at the cellular, hereditary, and systemic levels. That said, these pursuits aren't mutually exclusive. Origins research via evolutionary genetics and ancient DNA studies can indirectly inform the understanding of suffering, for example, by revealing how evolutionary trade-offs left us vulnerable to disease. But if one's aspiration is aligned with compassion, then yes, the real dharmic application of genetics is to focus on suffering and its alleviation. The story of human origins has already largely been told in broad strokes. We know the outline. Evolution from earlier hominids out of Africa migrations, admixture with Neanderthals and Denisovans, the shaping of modern populations. New findings will refine details, but the essential narrative is stable. By contrast, the field of human suffering as a biological subject remains wide open. Just think about it. As far as the genetics of misery, most genetic research focuses on mapping traits, disease risk, or pharmacogenomics, but a systematic framework around the biology of suffering itself, pain, despair, trauma, mental illness, aging, decline, hasn't been organized into a unifying paradigm. As far as evolutionary paradoxes, traits that once served survival, like anxiety, inflammation, or fat storage, now amplify suffering in modern contexts. Understanding these paradoxes reframes medicine not just as disease treatment, but as the compassionate resolution of inherited burdens. As far as industry implications, a shift away from where did we come from to why do we suffer and how can science help end that suffering would redirect funding, training, and public imagination. It would also resonate deeply with the masses, with patients, with governments, and with global health institutions. I'm pointing at a potential paradigm shift, moving biology closer to philosophy and ethics, much like how Buddha reframed spiritual inquiry, not about cosmic origins, but about suffering and its cessation. Make of this talk what you will, and this is where I end my dissertation. Thank you for watching.